John Catsimatidis, 77 WABC.
Welcome back to the John Catsimatidis Cats at Night show. We got a full house tonight. We got Governor Patterson, Ed Cox, Judge Weinberg, John Catsimatidis, and myself. Now on the line, we have retired DEA Special Agent in Charge, Derek Maltz, former Associate Special Agent in Charge of the New York Drug Enforcement Task Force. Welcome back to Cats at Night. Tell us what else is coming across the border. We just had on Karl Rove moments ago, and he was talking about this tactic that a lot of the coyotes use to get their drugs across the border. Just how bad is it getting? We keep hearing about fentanyl.
Well, look, I'm going to a rally on Saturday with families from around the country in Washington, D.C. We're going to go down to the White House. There's a lot of angry families around America because there's just nobody speaking about it from the White House. I mean, the vice president's telling the country that the border's under control. The Homeland Security Director is telling everyone that he's got operational control of the border. The Attorney General is going after parents that care about their kids' education as domestic terrorists. Meanwhile, the real terrorists in Mexico are actually poisoning this country like we've never seen in the history of this country. Just look at the seizures of the fake pills just in August, right? 1 million pills the first week of August in Nogales, Arizona. Another 1 million pills, 1.6 million seized in a tractor-trailer in Nogales as well. And then look in New Mexico. Just happened first week in September. Over 1 million pills, $4 million in cash, and 142 pounds of methamphetamine. The country's being flooded with poison. The cartels are working with China, and the White House is asleep.
They're asleep at the wheel. And here in New York City, to combat the crisis, certain clubs and restaurants are giving out fentanyl testing kits because a lot of people don't realize that they're taking a hit of ecstasy or whatever, and it ends up being fentanyl and they die. I mean, obviously, the simplest solution would be don't do drugs. But, I mean, that's really scary these days that, you know, even kids that might experiment, a 13-year-old, a 14-year-old could end up dying just on one hit.
Well, right now, one of the largest increases we're seeing is the teenagers. Just in Hollywood, I was in Hollywood this week, just yesterday, 2 days ago, kids dying in the bathroom in a high school, Bernstein High School in Hollywood, because they took what they thought was Percocet, and it were like 4 overdoses, 1 death. And the girl was 15 years old.
Oh, my
and we
God.
see it all over the time. We were in Ohio State in May. They had 2 kids, pre-med student, one of them, going to graduate, doing the finals, takes what they think is Adderall, dead. Remember, the DEA administrator put out a warning to America that 40% of the pills that they're analyzing have a potentially lethal dose of fentanyl. That means if you seize 1 million pills, that could potentially kill 400,000 Americans. And you know what? You're right. It's not just the pills. Guys are going out on a weekend snorting lines of cocaine because they think it's cool. It's a recreational thing. Normally, you're not going to die from snorting a line of cocaine, but they're dying left and right. Professional athletes, they're dying. They go out to snort some coke. Celebrities, role models. The problem is there's nobody talking about it. There's no education to the middle schools, to the high schools and colleges. And it's really sad because it's chemical weapons are being produced in Mexico, right across our border. They're using their nexus, their networks on the border, bring the dope into America, but it's not even dope. It's poison now. It's changed. It's not what it used to be, and nobody can adapt quick enough. And the White House is just not embracing what's going on because of the politics.
So, Mr. Maltz, tell us about the New York Drug Enforcement Task Force. You were a special agent in charge of it a while ago. Yes. It's been around for a long while. It really is a task force. Tell us about it and how's it doing?
All right, real quick. My father was in charge there for 11 years. It started in 1970, the oldest and largest drug task force in America, NYPD, DEA, and New York State Police. I was in charge for about 2 years. Greatest experience I ever had in drug law enforcement because I learned so much from all those warriors on the front lines in New York City. Right now, they're doing great. I mean, look, DEA last year alone seized 1 ton of fentanyl. It only takes 2 milligrams of fentanyl to kill a person, and they seized a ton just in New York alone. I have a lot of friends in New York in the task force, the strike force, and also the DEA division working with Homeland Security investigations and the other agencies. They're doing some pretty good work. But the problem is, just look what happened. Bridget Brennan is a great prosecutor in New York. I've known her forever. She's really good. She's great with the media. And guess what happens? They lock up 2 Mexican cartel guys with 165 pounds of meth. They have to release them because of the antiquated old drug laws in America. They couldn't even, in New York, they couldn't even keep these cartel operatives in jail.
That's the so-called bail reform law.
Yeah, we have so many, antiquated policies. We can't even stay up with the bad guys now because their communications are all encrypted. And you know what? Everyone needs to hear that the Chinese are providing all the money laundering services for the Mexican cartels. That's why, if you read recently some of the breaking stories, China's purchased over $6 billion in property and real estate in America, and the majority of those purchases are by cash. You know why? Because the Chinese students that are here in visas are picking up multi-millions of dollars from the Mexican cartels in our country.
Wow.
And they're also supplying the chemicals for the fentanyl. Is this a declaration of war by China at this point?
Well, look, I will tell you that based on my years of experience, my DNA from my father, and everyone I've talked to and the experts on the Communist Chinese Party, I personally believe it's part of their unrestricted warfare. They're sending poisonous chemicals to our country. They're using now the cartels as the proxy to do the dirty work, just like Iran uses Hezbollah to do their dirty work. It's the same concept. The cartels are making a fortune. They're actually making billions of dollars selling all these substances. They don't need the plant-based substances anymore. They have synthetic, substances that are cheaper, more addictive. And now they're selling the rainbow-colored drugs, so they look like Sweet Tarts and Skittles because they're going after the kids. It's a strategic, deceptive marketing campaign to drive profits, drive addiction. Insanity.
John Catsimatidis, you have an excellent point that it really, I feel like, drives home just how horrific this fentanyl crisis is.
Well, I understand we lost 50,000 kids in Vietnam, 50,000 kids in Korea, 7,000 in Afghanistan. That's 107,000 during those wars. In the last 12 months, I understand we lost 140,000 Americans in America for 12 months.
For opioid overdose.
Yeah, I mean, look, the horrific day on 9/11, the 3,000 that died at the Trade Center, and then the wars that we went to. And then you just look at what's happening every year. We're losing like 300 a day, depending on what statistics. That's another thing I want to bring up to the show. The CDC is so dysfunctional. Even the new leader came out and fell on the sword a little bit and said they weren't doing the right thing with some of their programs. Well, the Families Against Fentanyl, they wrote letters to the director of CDC. They can't get accurate stats and up-to-date stats on fentanyl poisonings. They're giving them old information. And, another thing important statistic just came out. In San Diego, in the last 5 years, they've seen a 2,375% increase in fentanyl-related deaths. Wow. Think about that for a second.
Well, on the phone with us, Derek, on the phone with us is also former Senator Alphonse D'Amato. Senator, have you been listening to all the statistics that retired DEA agent has been telling us?
Well, let me tell you, he's 110% right. You have over 100,000 deaths because of fentanyl last year. And it's absolutely criminal that we are being attacked by China and by the drug gangs in Mexico. And our open borders, and that's what the heck we have, are contributing to this. This is, I think, one of the saddest tragedies that the national media has totally hidden. The incredible toll on our people, not only the killing of these young, innocent people, so many of them youngsters involved in this fentanyl, that's number one. But number two, the incredible cost that communities are bearing, working middle-class families. To educate a kid in Nassau County, the taxpayer is paying more than $21,000 a year in taxes per child. Now, for God's sakes,
where's that? 21,000?
Long Island.
Long Island? Well, Board of Education in New York is like 27,000.
Well, look, if you had only 10 or 11,000 immigrants who came into New York City and it's giving them trouble. Imagine in these other communities.
President Biden himself said that the drug crisis is an unusual and extraordinary threat to the U.S. national security back in December. So the question to the president and to our border czar that's not going to the border and doing anything, why the hell is the border then wide open? All these gotaways, they're in our country. The next terrorism act is probably being plotted right now in America because they came over the border.
We are under attack, and we should be able to shut this down within a matter of hours by putting our army on the border, shutting it down, and return to the policy that we once had, that you stay in Mexico until we've cleared you.
Thank you so much, Derek Maltz, former special DEA agent. And thank you. And keep us posted on the event Saturday. It sounds like an amazing event.
And thank you, Senator Alphonse D'Amato, and I hope to see you soon.